AI does help us already, and it's proving its value increasingly. I think in this day and age, AI is often associated with ChatGPT, but think about it. There are more iterations of how AI help us give a sanity check to what we think is convention, and in approaching how to operate anything from refineries, petrochemical plants, and our upstream projects.
Joining us today on CEO2CEO is Yang Mulia Datuk Tengku Taufik, the President and CEO of PETRONAS. And he's joining me just after signing a memorandum of collaboration with Bursa, all around building a just transition, calculating what needs to be calculated. But before we get into that, we have some very tough questions. Tea or coffee?
Coffee, definitely.
White, sugar?
Black.
Favorite time of day and why?
Evening, because you know the end is about to be there.
Favorite sport?
Soccer.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tragic choice of team, but soccer nonetheless.
If you had a free hour in a day, what would you do?
Start dusting off my guitars again.
How would you describe your job to a 5-year-old?
I help cars go, factories run, and businesses light up through day and night.
Cool. Name 2 things you consider yourself to be very good at. He's modest. This will be very difficult.
Okay. Engaging people in conversation. Probably a degree of patience.
What is the best example of community you have seen?
Community. We can't go far wrong by describing the Japanese ethos. Discipline, precision, and a code of humility and honor.
Best advice you have received?
Don't be afraid to try.
Spot on. Since 2013, PETRONAS has reduced 18.1 million tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent across its operations. What was the strategy taken to reduce emissions over the years? And can you share some of the key successful initiatives?
Right. I think when we broach a subject like this and you speak with the kind of scale that you described there, Omar, people may think the task of hacking away our emissions and reducing 18.1 million tons in the space of a decade may be too large an undertaking, but it is all due to building blocks we already inherently had. For PETRONAS, doing something like this was inherently already present in our statement of purpose. We are aiming to become a progressive energy and solutions provider, enriching lives for a sustainable future. All right. And you will note enriching lives for a sustainable future means it is not the pursuit of profit at all costs. It is profit within that purpose. In that statement, you will note that we didn't also specify oil and gas. We understood, recognized, and anticipated that the energy transition is not only imminent, it's already practically here, knocking on our door and probably screaming at the top of its lungs to tell us that a decarbonized system is on its way. So in delivering this 18.1 million tons of carbon dioxide reduction, the initiatives that you probably would want to hear about are not the ones that just only force an either or mentality. It's either you do it or you lose business. But it is more of both and. A number of the notable successes we've had, what we thought was difficult to abate, say in our liquefied natural gas business, we had a reliance on gas turbines. Given reliance on gas turbines, we switched that over to electrification. Now, pursuing electrification and just getting power import from a green source, this is in Sarawak, we help gain CO2 reduction of about 60,000 tons CO2 per year. Now, it may be seen as just a cost, but there's a both and. The and was we also managed to yield without using the gas we would have otherwise sold as part of the fuel to power our plants. It gave us extra cargoes. It gave us specifically 0.34 of a large cargo. Secondly, we also addressed where you had flaring of gas during LNG loading that would have led to CO2 emissions. That helped us abate 155,000 tons of CO2. And in that example, we had another additional 0.87. So just adding those two in this kind of price environment by just saving the kind of emissions that you would have, not saving, evading the kind of emissions that you would have had to contend with, you're adding cargoes you put to the market. So it is a revenue earner while being more responsible. Over and above that, we're increasingly have already and also increasingly adopting the philosophy of zero flaring and venting in offshore operations, again adding to the natural gas that we could put to the market and help, probably for lack of a better description, displace the use of coal for power generation. So in doing all of this, we believe that these little building blocks were already present. If you hark back to November 2020, when I just had recently taken on this job, people were saying, you're borderline insane. Why go for the net zero carbon emissions? You're a national oil company. It's not inherently asked of you to do this. But we could not deny the push for a decarbonized system. So here we are.
Oh, it's good. I mean, PETRONAS announced its pathway to net zero carbon emissions by 2050 in November 2022.
Yep.
How does PETRONAS align its decarbonisation journey with the goals of the Paris Agreement and address potential financial impact, which you've touched on a little bit, the decarbonisation journey?
Yep. So the irresponsible thing that some people may tend to believe, the skeptics within society may tend to believe, is that we've set a target, it's so far out, nobody's going to actually be around to hold us accountable whether we reach it or not. We're not going to do that. We have set out near-term, medium-term, and long-term targets. And this is, I'm just looking at this being reproduced from our own literature. Next year, we aim to cap our GHG emissions to 49.5 tons CO2 equivalent. 2024, end of 2024. Tough target. There's still some ways across, but we're not going to shirk away from trying. We're going to adopt very unconventional ways. We've just concluded a decarbonisation hackathon, race to decarbonize, that we've now selected winners to put in solutions, and that's going to hack away at whatever we haven't dealt with to get to 49.5. By 2030, 25% absolute GHG emissions reductions from our 2019 baseline. By 2050, we'll get to net zero scope 1 and 2. But we also recognize there are some near-term impacts we have to deal with, which is primarily from methane, far more potent than CO2. We've got, within the space of 2 years, a target that puts us with, shall we say, a challenge of reducing 50% of methane emissions from group-wide natural gas value business by 2025. So this is, we do not just throw a number out there and say, just trust us, there's a pathway. There are near-term targets. The senior management of PETRONAS is held accountable. It's part of our KPIs. It's part of the reward system. Carbon intensity in the barrels that we produce, they're there. And we're going to be held responsible for what we deliver. So insofar as making sure that we support the country's NDCs, PETRONAS has stepped up to the plate. We can't say we're going to be able to resolve everything. There's no magic silver bullet to do everything, but what we can do, we certainly will.
Last year, PETRONAS Chemical Group announced a collaboration with ExxonMobil for large-scale implementation of advanced plastic recycling technology in Malaysia. Can you share with us, Taufik, what is the expected on the country's waste management and sustainability goals? And how does the collaboration align with Malaysia's vision for a circular economy?
Yeah. So our circular economy plans and our transition journey, so to speak, I think there is, I wouldn't say an overarching framework, but there's definitely a roadmap which has been charted out between 2021 2030. That's the Malaysia Plastic Sustainability Roadmap. And PCG, our petrochemical arm, is, as you've rightly described, working on a number of initiatives to work with partners such as Exxon. And in doing this, I think what we're looking at is moving to scaling up recycling. Now, recycling is not just going to be about technology. We need to create an ecosystem for the collection, for the management, for the reintroduction, and for a secondary market to get these plastics back into the system in Malaysia. So the company is really, really excited about the opportunity to support not only the waste collection system, but also the
the whole ecosystem.
the entire ecosystem.
So you got the technology piece, and then you've got the
absolutely
all the things that we need to do as consumers to allow the technology to be used.
Your earlier question around which community I do respect, the degree of discipline that is adopted by Japan and also some Scandinavian geographies indicate there is already an inherent discipline and ethos around how you sort your waste. Councils, local state authorities are incentivized to make sure collection actually supports circularization. And all of these need to be implemented together with any technology or scaling up that we're working on with Exxon. So PCG's the tip of the spear when it comes to PETRONAS, and we want to collaborate not only within industry, but also, as I said, collaboration is, in many conversations before this, collaboration is the only way forward. We're going to have to work not only within, but across industries, and we've got to get this working with people who now currently run landfills, run collection networks, so the entire ecosystem can be up and running in as short a pathway as possible.
I mean, it's often been said, companies are relatively simple organisms. Do make money, they'll do more. Don't make money, they will do less. So building on this, would you be fair to say that consumers have a role to play in sending the right message?
They do. I think the reality is we do have probably varying degrees of literacy around the impact of our habits. Of course, we've spoken about this, and if it's seen only as a cost, a burden, there's going to be a natural degree of aversion. If we spoke about this earlier, Umar, when you put the competition between food on the table today versus sustainability 5 to 10 years down the road, I think in an environment that we live today with where inflation has been such a looming threat and cost of living is a daily challenge for many households, the consumer may not be inclined to do anything more responsible. Businesses will go for the cheapest route, and that may not be one that involves recycling or circularization. But increasingly, the consumer, the ultimate buyer, needs to also exercise and flex his or her muscle. These habits need to show that you are going to become a more sustainable consumer of resources.
I mean, often the conversation is about rewarding good behaviour.
Absolutely.
And our philosophy has always been carrot versus stick. Sticks there. But actually getting people to reward good behaviour is the key. And you just mentioned previously, Taufik, the hackathon. I thought which is quite interesting. Can you share a little bit more about who was involved? Groups came in.
This was born out of some people looking outside in may describe it as desperation. No, actually it is, we have a runway, but we wanted to unlock every possible avenue to secure solutions that would not only be implementable, but practicable on large scale. Now, who would be those sources of insights and knowledge, if not our own technology partners and equipment providers, but also the guys who operate. And we decided it would be a hackathon because sometimes you get the myopia of being too close to the subject matter. We also invited outside parties to take a look at our operations and say, hey, there are energy efficiency tweaks that you can do here. Hey, there are means of abating flaring and venting. Hey, you can avoid a little bit more combustion here and there. Hey, there are simple tweaks, low-hanging fixes, which would not compromise your licenses to to operate and use technology. So all of those have been brought to bear. I believe the technology providers anywhere from Germany to people locally have been secured for this already. Out of that gap that we think needs to be addressed to get to 49.5, we're looking at about 30 to 40% in this first hackathon. And we're going to run.
That's good.
We're going to run. It needs to be implemented, of course.
Yep.
It has been quantified that we can do this. We'll need to set aside the money, and since we're all going to talk about money anyway, PETRONAS is determined to make sure decarbonisation is high on its radar. 20% of capex for the next 5 years. You've heard this. I've announced this. Up to 300 billion ringgit over the next 5 years. But out of that, on average, 20% of decarbonisation is where it goes. Decarbonisation covers moving away from combusting. It also moves towards energy efficiency and also for storage. So a lot of that money is going to deal with ensuring a core business can go on, but in a differentiated way.
That's a large figure, Taufik. And I think this gets back to some of the themes we've talked about on CEO2CEO, is there is opportunity in the pivot to green.
Indeed.
And too often I hear it as a cost,
Yeah.
where actually the conversation should be embrace it and actually become a differentiated player so that they can be a part, service providers can be a part of your just transition.
Indeed.
And actually make something special.
Yeah.
Continuing innovation, bit of a theme. PETRONAS recently launched the Artificial Intelligence Centre of Excellence, AICOE. Now that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
But can you explain a little bit more and give us examples of how PETRONAS is already using applied artificial intelligence and how the Centre of Excellence was built on these successes?
Okay. We are inherently a business that relies very, very much on technology and innovation. It is part of PETRONAS' DNA of growth. You embrace new technologies, you embrace new approaches to providing energy and solutions. We hark back to 1978 when we first said yes to liquefied natural gas, that wasn't pervasive then. It was a bet. We had to secure long-term off-takers, and we have remained partners until today, customers in Japan, Korea, Taiwan. So embracing new technology has been pretty much the way that we've grown in this industry. The indications that came that digitalization and henceforth AI would be much, much more a part of the way that we deliver this came with the pandemic. We had to make a choice. We had to make a choice to work remotely in many, many situations, and we embraced digitalization at such a pace. And one of the knock-on effects that we saw was it also had a heck of an opportunity to increase efficiency, automate more, put more people out of harm's way, and guess what? Big bonus, the emissions. The carbon footprints were also lowered because you had less of a logistics burden. So we then put in a lot of digitalization efforts, and a number of them, I can cite projects such as Alpha LNG, where we help the PETRONAS LNG value chain map to market where values could be maximized, whether it is a lower feed cost, ending up to the best priced market, or the best logistics in order to serve and compete in targeted markets. And we do have had also everywhere from our upstream to our manufacturing of LNG, our liquefaction plants. We had an AI-assisted tool to help plants start up. Now it's just like the engines of a car, though it is it's highly inefficient. You get a lot of exhaust coming out, right? But if you plan this correctly in the right sequence, and an AI helped us in doing that, we had over 40% reduction in the use of fuels to start up our plants, and reduced emissions to 45%. So AI does help us already, and it's proven. And guess what? What we don't have to burn, we can sell. So it is proving its value increasingly. I think in this day and age, AI is often associated with ChatGPT, but think about it. There are more iterations of how AI help us give a sanity check to what we think is convention, and in approaching how to operate anything from refineries, petrochemical plants, and our upstream projects.
I've often said energy is the ultimate lifestyle product, Taufik. I mean, we're sitting here nicely cooled on the 41st floor of Tower 1 because of energy.
Yep.
You're seeing this because of energy. But actually, PETRONAS is so much more. Fertilizers and so on and so on and so on. And you continue to build the product stack. And you're moving into, I mean, of course, you're a solutions provider. But last year you launched Gentar. So I thought perhaps share with the audience a little bit where the long-term vision for Gentar and how that's going to, what is it, Gentar rather?
Gentar. Yeah.
Gentar, sorry.
No, it's all right. It's fine. Warren, I think a lot of people maybe put too much credit to my name with the arrival of Gentar. At the end of the day, the accountant came through. The need to be practical came through. I could not get a line of sight around all of these initiatives and undertakings taken on at pace, to the credit of the wider PETRONAS family, taken on at pace across many businesses. And we could not string them up together and say, how could these pieces be offered as a solution? And from an accountant's perspective, that's an absolute nightmare with resources and holding people accountable. But equally also I saw from the role of a CEO that you need focus and direction to be aligned, or else people were going to pursue multiple targets which either had no bearing on the ultimate way that we would deliver solutions in a coherent and commercial manner. So when Gentar was born, it came along almost in parallel with those three pillars which we developed. Three pillars are pursuit of hydrogen, blue and green hydrogen, up to 1.2 million tons per annum. We're looking at trying to get 30 to 40 gigawatts of clean energy. And that is not only solar, of course. Our region has many resources, but solar isn't exactly our strong suit. And ultimately also we want to offer solutions for greener mobility, because that's an adjacency to what we do. Bringing this all into focus and having this also housed under one entity helped the clarity and deployment of resources, the focus, and ultimately when we go to market, you should know this, it's a cleaner footprint to go back and say, hey, these are the kinds of businesses where the use of proceeds are going to be designated to. And this kind of thinking gave birth to Gentar, thankfully blessed by our ultimate shareholder. Gentar is there to, in the interim, help lower the entire carbon intensity for the group. But over the long run, this is also recognition that at some point, when I say at some point, this will still be decades to come, we will need to be part of that decarbonized energy system, and we might as well make those foundations solid and ready now.
Let's talk a little bit about people.
Oh boy.
Our blood is green.
Yeah.
It's often said. But all joking aside, employee value proposition PETRONAS is strong. PETRONAS is the #1 LinkedIn employer of choice. I mean, seriously.
Okay.
No, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And no, that's because of the strong employee value proposition. So could you share with us some of the key values guiding the company's approach to employee management that attracts such great talent and retains talent?
Okay. The reality is today, Warren, you know this, I think we're both facing this head on to this current crop of employees. The old saying, people join you for your history, but people stay with you because you have a future, couldn't be truer. My first probably 2 years, I emphasized a lot with engaging with the younger staff to understand what exactly is troubling you if you were going to stay with us. Increasingly, we've been painted into a corner. I think for lack of, or without any insult intended, but this just drawing an analogy here, oil and gas became the new tobacco. We're the bad guys. The industry narrative was, well, the overarching narrative around the industry was that we're responsible for emissions, we're not stopping, and some windfall profits have just further strengthened this perception that, hey, you're not doing anything because this just doesn't make sense for you. You're spelling the end of your own demise. And that must have worried a large number of our constituents. Our employees were indeed asking, what was the future for a geologist? If I'm a mechanical engineer in a liquefied natural gas plant, is this it? Is this it? Can I specialize further? Do you see use for me beyond the next 5, 7 years? And I had to ensure that they were convinced this, in fact, could be the golden age of engineering. Because the solutions that help decarbonize our core, which is oil and gas, remember the need is for energy, the problem is emissions. If we could decarbonize that, that would unlock energy security in a far more responsible way. A lot of institutions of higher learning, such as Imperial, Heriot Watt, our own UTP, are applying their minds to this one single challenge: how to devise means of producing energy which is not only reliable, secure, affordable, but also now sustainable. And that means, for this new batch, the challenge for you is not only to join a company and say it's inherently oil and gas. It is a company that will necessarily transform into an energy superstore. It will provide the core oil and gas in a more differentiated way, more sustainably, cost optimized and safe. But it will also embark into new chemistries, into new realms of energy which we had never envisaged before. And I think putting this offering to the employees, particularly the ones that want to know that they have a future, is the only way. We have got to engage with them over and over and over again. And I think while the outcome on LinkedIn is a credit to the team in making sure that recruitment, attraction, and retention has been effective, this cause, this purpose is, you described it as the blood is green. This cause, this purpose must be the unifying force that keeps people within the company. It's got to get their juices going every day they wake up in the morning.
Shared common vision. Strategies and initiatives does PETRONAS have to promote greater inclusivity and diversity?
Yeah, this one is a tricky one. I think. Well, let's put it this way. We have a senior management team which already has two ladies. Our SVP of HR and our group's chief financial officer are ladies. But diversity and inclusion goes far more beyond that. I think we're talking about differences in not only backgrounds, cultures, belief sets that helps to enrich conversations and help enforce better decision making, enforce and encourage better decision making. We're on our journey to get there, and I think insofar as making sure that our demographics, and I'm just going to refer here to our demographics, we are looking at trying to ensure that this is done intentionally. I just need to remember the right name. I want to call it a committee. The notes here indicate we have a D&I council. So in short, we must make sure that these are done coherently, merit-based at every level of PETRONAS. One of our cultural beliefs is, in accompanying this customer centricity, we encourage our staff to speak up.
Yeah.
People without the prior experience may have often been intimidated to speak in situations, but this is now a requirement. It's almost an obligation to speak up and see or ask or question if this convention is right. And diversity and inclusion beyond this D&I council, pushing for the inclusion of women, has been recognized not only at home but also abroad. And I think it bodes very, very well for PETRONAS. And the trick is for me, at least within my time here, is to now involve more of the international team.
Okay.
Because we have a footprint that is not only in Malaysia. I think
we have a rich geographic coverage.
Correct. We can tap on that, and novel approaches seen elsewhere need to now be fostered in the geographies that need them, and that's the next wave, I think.
Okay. No, I think that's great. I mean, PETRONAS has always been very responsible, and the commitment to CSR goes back many years, way before the establishment of Yayasan PETRONAS in 2019. With the ESG gaining more traction and a strong emphasis on the S, the social element, how do you perceive CSR evolving and its role in social inclusion?
When we see CSR, some companies may view corporate social responsibility as an add-on. I'm not going to name names, or I'm not going to cite examples where things are seen as a bolt-on. But in Malaysia, because of our status as a national oil company, charged with maximizing the value of every drop and every molecule that we extract from the ground, returning back to our host authorities has been built in. So that was seen as hugely value adding, and you rightly pointed out, way even before Yayasan PETRONAS was built up, this CSR part of the way that PETRONAS operates was recognized by other host authorities, and that really helped us in our internationalization drive way back in the mid-1990s. So when we see now CSR being a platform for becoming more sustainable as a whole, we apply four sustainability lenses. Whatever we do must help continue to create value. It safeguards the environment, creates positive social impact, and all of this is done within the framework of a very responsible governance. We do this clearly, objectively, and transparently. And our thinking around delivering CSR, particularly in the context of YP, Yayasan PETRONAS, you know that PETRONAS has had a long history of being associated with education. We've sent 37,000 scholars across. The bulk of the senior leadership team is a product of this, myself included. So one of them is indeed powering knowledge and education, and we remain focused in this area because we believe that the only thing that will drive countries across these various challenges is ensuring human capital remains valuable. Uplifting lives, I think in returning to community well-being and ensuring their development is the second one. We must make sure wherever we operate, the community benefits. And third, of course, given the necessary attention that we have to put into preserving and protecting the environment, we have taken steps. We have a position on biodiversity. And of course, we've just been speaking around our commitments to containing our emissions. We must make sure we also protect the environment we operate in. And on that front, PETRONAS has been continuing to contribute to causes within this space. So all in all, I think just last year, it was probably just a tad shy of 1 billion ringgit worth of CSR initiatives. And I think this is not a fact that's well known. We don't go out beating a drum about this, but we're quietly satisfied that the outcomes are indeed reaching the people who most need it.
Meaningful.
Yeah, indeed.
Exciting stuff. Well, look at the camera.
You gotta look at the camera. Okay.
Look at the camera.
Not the most photogenic person, but okay, let's look at the camera.
Handsome fella.
Okay.
We're drawing to a close. Last message, Taufik.
This is probably, when we talk about sustainability and making sure that we operate sustainability, weave sustainability into the way we operate as businesses is probably a generation-defining challenge. But like any challenge, we're going to find a solution. We've got enough brains and we've got enough will to pursue it. So with gentlemen like this,
Step by step.
Indeed. Never be afraid to try it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The only thing is you got to do it.
Yeah.
Cheers.